Disturbing scenes on our streets, triggering calls to the WAVE troubleshooters alleging patient dumping by local hospitals. Two different $2 million plus patient dumping jury verdicts recently in Kentucky caught our eye. But what really got our attention was where calls to our newsroom led us when we began following up on the complaints. This story begins December 1st at 5 p.m. with a phone call to our newsroom from a horrified University Hospital employee claiming security had just wheeled a woman all the way out to the corner of Hancock and Ali, just off hospital property, dumped the elderly woman out of the wheelchair on the sidewalk, and left. Minutes later, we shot video of her, still in a soiled hospital gown and slippers, breathing hard under a blanket placed over her in 36-degree weather, her stuff in a bag next to her. The employee claimed she sees this a lot. So I started watching, and on December 16th at 7 p.m., 35 degrees outside, I record 3 security guards surrounding an elderly woman with a walker, slowly escorting her out of the emergency room. She can't move fast. It takes several minutes to make it all the way to the same corner of Hancock and Ali. After they have her across the street, off the hospital property, the security guards turn around and go back. When they clear, I catch up to her, and she says she can't breathe.
They told me that I couldn't stay on the premises. Amen.
Were you in there as a patient?
Well, I needed to be a patient because I'm sick.
What's wrong with you?
I've got COPD. I got diabetes.
So they wouldn't even treat you?
The doctor talked to me for 1 minute.
And they told you what?
That I had to leave.
What reason did he give you?
He didn't give me a reason.
She tells me she's homeless.
I've got to go because I'm hurting. I'm in pain.
I was in a car crash, and it completely shattered my hip and pelvis. Right here, I got like 30-something screwed.
Matthew Hauber and his mother claim a similar story. They met us in front of Wayside Mission in the spot where they say he was dumped in October.
Anywhere, and they said, well, we can't find a rehab right now.
Linda Hauber said when Norton Hospital told her they had a room lined up for Matthew at Wayside, she checked it out.
I called Wayside Christian Mission and just to confirm, and they said no. They said we can't do that. We can't. You know, they have beds and they help them find jobs and stuff, but we don't take medically needy people. We don't do that. And
then she says she had a conference call with the hospital staff.
the social worker said, we're going to take him to a shelter. And I said, which one? And they said, Wayside Christian Mission. And I said, well, I know that's not true because I called them and they don't take him. And then the lady said, the social worker said, well, that's history. Let's think of something else.
Hauber says the next day, her son was unloaded from a transport vehicle on the curb in the rain on Jackson Street in front of Wayside.
I thought they've dumped my garbage. I have to put out to the curb. That's how they dumped my son, like garbage.
Linda Hauber said she was in no shape to care for him at home, and she died after this interview.
They put all their stuff on the sidewalk over there, or they dump them off over here on the sidewalk and get back in that vehicle and get out here just as fast as they can.
Wayside staffer Perry Lane helped Matthew out of the rain and says he witnesses the same kind of thing dozens of times per year from hospitals as far away as eastern Kentucky. He says they're often lied to about the medical treatment they'll receive at the shelter.
What's the worst physical shape you've seen somebody in who was dumped? This guy here was pretty bad.
Paralyzed. People that can't walk, that are totally relied on a wheelchair. Take them out, put them in the wheelchair, throw all their stuff on the and take off.
Wayside's Chief Operating Officer Nina Mosley tells me it's not uncommon. She says they're not trained medically, and sometimes they take patients right back to the hospitals.
How can you dump people? These are human beings. How can you just dump them and leave them? It doesn't make any sense to me. It's unhuman, man.
We detail these incidents with dates and times to both Norton and University hospitals. Norton Healthcare Senior Vice President Renee Murphy responded in an email that says, in order to safeguard the privacy of patients and in compliance with HIPAA, we are not permitted to discuss specifics regarding a patient's case. There are several details to this case that may not have been communicated to you by the family. As Mr. Hauber has not signed a HIPAA release of information form, we will not be able to share those details with you. University Hospital Public Relations Director David MacArthur replied, "They appear to be working on behalf of U of L Hospital. Unfortunately, the images that were provided by WAVE do not reveal enough information to track down additional details or identify whether the individuals on either day sought care from any of our team." What is heartbreaking for U of L Health staff is that we often encounter situations where patients need assistance beyond medical care. As the community's safety net hospital, the challenges are particularly even more acute when providing health care to the unhoused population of Metro Louisville. Community resources are limited, and even when they are available, many individuals that may benefit from those resources still refuse assistance. The Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, known as EMTALA, was passed in 1986 as a federal anti-dumping law. It mandates patients who present to a hospital emergency department must undergo an appropriate medical screening examination by a physician to determine whether they have an emergency medical condition. If they do, they must be stabilized and treated, and an appropriate transfer may take place to another facility with adequate capabilities.
Juries take the hospital's obligations to treat emergency patients very, very seriously.
Attorney Hans Poppy knows that firsthand. He won a $2.3 million patient dumping verdict, most of that in punitive damages, after his client, who was coming to a Lexington hospital by ambulance with a cardiac emergency, was turned away and directed to another hospital.
Juries don't like to punish hospitals.
There aren't many verdicts in Kentucky history favoring plaintiffs in alleged patient dumping cases, but this one is interesting. A $1.5 million verdict awarded in Fayette County to a difficult patient with a history of ER visits, dumped by a hospital, rolled outside in a wheelchair with taxi fare, and hours later, the man was dead of an untreated ulcer. After being reversed on appeal, another jury socked the hospital for $1.45 million.
So what that tells us is if a jury hears a case and they believe that there has been an EMTALA violation where a patient has been dumped or abandoned by the hospital, they really get upset.
Dude, like, I'm worthless, man. We're throwaway. We're garbage, you know?
Now, I was contacted this week by a police officer who worked off-duty at University Hospital who says she emailed U of L Health CEO Tom Miller on March 1st about this issue and what she was witnessing, and she says she was then informed she would no longer be working there. I asked U of L about that. They say the officer was concerned about the same things they are, and they're collaborating to increase community resources for the at-risk populations. As for being let go after her email, U of L would only say that she was employed by a third-party security service. Welcome to Wave News at 6. I'm John Bowl.
And I'm Myra Ansari. We begin with a follow-up to the Wave troubleshooters investigation of a hospital patient dumping complaint last June that has stirred a lot of reaction and more complaints.
Tonight, the mystery unfolding after a woman is taken by ambulance to a hospital one day and found dead at the bus stop in front of the hospital 2 days later. You see it when you drive down Poplar Level Road, next to the bus stop, in front of Norton Audubon Hospital, a pink cross with the name Amber Hall.
She was our firstborn niece, and we loved her.
Amber Hall's family has been trying to get to the bottom of a mystery.
It's been a total mess. I've been so upset. Well, actually, the whole family, we've just been so upset. We're in shock.
A mystery that started with Amber's ambulance ride to Audubon Hospital September 6th and ended September 8th when she was found dead at the bus stop near the main entrance.
She woke up and her stomach was hurting, and she said she was having problems breathing later in the day, and she went to Audubon Hospital by ambulance. She was out in the waiting room for 8 hours before they took her back. And I spoke with her all day long that day, off and on, off and on.
Believing she had been admitted, they never heard from her the next day. Then the following morning, September 8th, a visit from the coroner.
And the coroner said they found her at 7:30 a.m. Friday morning deceased, but said that she had been dead for a while.
They say all the hospital would tell them was Amber had been discharged. They put up a poster seeking witnesses at the bus stop where she was found dead.
And we saw two guys walking from the bus stop to the van. pushing an empty wheelchair.
And there was somebody wrapped up in a blanket in the corner of leaning up against the side of the bus stop.
These two witnesses came forward who don't want to be identified out of fear of retaliation. They were driving by the bus stop at dusk when they say they saw security guards putting a wheelchair back into a van marked hospital security.
They got in the van very fast. He just threw that wheelchair in the back, hit the button, and when it popped back up, they still drove off.
Which suggests to you that they
wanted to get away from the bus stop as fast as possible.
The next morning, they snapped these photos of the commotion around the bus stop death from the hospital room of the patient they were visiting.
It's sad. I wish I could have done more. I wish I
would have done more.
Yeah, I wish I would have done more. I mean, maybe when I seen them pushing the empty wheelchair, ask questions, take more pictures, checked on them.
And once the witness came forward about her being dumped at the bus stop, it opened our eyes about a lot, and they didn't admit to doing that until we went in and told them that we had a witness that saw what they did with a little 90-pound girl, and if she was in good condition, why would you need a wheelchair to take her down there, and why would it take two of you all to put her in the van to take her down there?
They say when Amber doesn't take her liver disease medication lactulose, she suffers an ammonia imbalance in her blood and becomes incoherent. So if she went that long without it, it would have left her dangerously delirious.
It's so sad to sit there and die alone in that way and just have somebody shove you out of the hospital somewhere that you're going for help. I can't even imagine what she was thinking, if she was even in her right mind.
It appears she wasn't in her right mind. We requested the coroner's report, which listed Amber's cause of death as acute and chronic substance abuse. She had a blood alcohol level of 0.33% and a slightly higher than therapeutic dose level of tramadol, an opioid used to treat severe pain. The family wonders how she got booze after being taken by wheelchair to the same bus stop where she was found dead. Did she drink herself to death, incoherent from ammonia buildup out of despair of not being treated, in severe pain? Norton Hospital's public relations director responded to all this in an email. Discharging a patient who no longer needs emergency medical or inpatient care is not patient dumping. Emergency room beds are needed for patients who require these levels of care. Our thoughts and prayers are with the family during this difficult time. Due to privacy laws, we are not able to comment on a specific patient's care. We can tell you that patients are discharged from the emergency department once a provider examines the patient, provides necessary medical treatment, and determines that inpatient hospitalization is unnecessary. I shared the hospital statement with the family. It didn't wipe away the tears.
Her smile,
her laughter.
and every time she would leave, no matter what, even if it was for an hour, she would always say, "I love you" to everyone.
I'm a cancer survivor, and I'm like home and disabled, and she's just there with me every day. I really miss her.
It's just so sad that they treat people that way.
I think they didn't want to treat her because they thought she was a frequent flyer, and they just, wanted to get rid of her. It's like they dumped their garbage on the streets. Like they took their garbage to the curb and just left it there.
Now, the family has retained the attorney that I interviewed in my first report on this issue, Hans Poppy, who recently won a $2.3 million patient dumping verdict in Kentucky. I called him last week. He has no comment yet because he's still compiling information. I'll keep you posted. And I have another report coming up on this issue as soon as I get a response from the hospital that's involved in that one. More complaints coming in alleging patient dumping hasn't let up since our first report on the issue last June. In fact, we don't have enough time to detail the stories coming from Wayside Mission's COO of patients being dropped off there in bad shape, still in need of medical assistance. But we are getting much more of the hospital side of this now as we continue following up on our troubling troubleshooter investigation. There's a lot going on outside University Hospital, a level 1 trauma center, medical helicopters, ambulances, police, even arrests. But on October 4th at dusk, something else caught the eye of an arriving ambulance crew.
And my partner was like, "Look out the back window. They just dumped that guy over there." I see him laying down and I'm like, oh my God, they just dumped that guy on the side of the road and just left.
The EMT who came to us doesn't want to be identified out of fear she'll be fired. She described a scene similar to the one I recorded in a previous report, where an elderly woman was escorted by security off the University Hospital property after she said they refused to treat her for COPD and she couldn't breathe.
I think it was like 4 security guards and then like 1 Louisville Metro Department of Corrections officer, because he had the LNDC on the back of his vest, and then they were all walking him out.
She had a patient to attend to, but snapped a photo.
And by the time I come back out and we go down the road, they're already walking away from the guy, and the guy's just laying face down on the road.
The photo shows the person on the sidewalk south of the emergency room entrance near Hancock and Chestnut, a less visible sight than the incident we recorded in our previous report a block north of the ER at the busier intersection of Hancock and Ali. After a University Hospital employee told us security wheeled an elderly woman there, dumped her on the sidewalk, and left her like this. The man on October 4th lied there until the EMT returned from another run, brought him some food and drink, then got sent on another run.
He was wearing like I think a hospital gown and some shorts, and then he had a hospital blanket over top of him, and he was laying face down. I mean, he was asleep just right there on the concrete. I mean, I was just like, holy crap, how can you treat a person like that? I mean, how can you just toss him to the side of the road?
December 13th, I spot this man in the same spot at Hancock and Chestnut with hospital scrubs under his clothes. People walk by like he's part of the sidewalk. Sometimes they stop and stare.
Did you just go to the emergency room? What's wrong with you? Did they kick you out? Why? What'd they say?
He has what appears to be a hospital bag next to him with his name on a barcode and his stuff inside.
Is your name Charles? Charles Woods? Did they walk you out of the hospital over to here? Just now? Can you tell me what's wrong?
The despair and tears on his face tell me that's a dumb question. A lot is wrong in Charles Woods' life. I honestly don't know what to do, so I call Wayside Christian Mission. They respond within minutes, telling me they're used to this.
I hate to say it, sometimes the hospital puts them out here and they have nowhere to go.
You gonna take me now?
Yeah, yes sir, we're gonna take you down to the shelter now. So come on, let's get you off the street. Let's get you off the street. You don't wanna go in?
No, he doesn't. After a long lobbying effort, Charles Woods refuses to go to the shelter.
Sleeping bag inside.
So they do what they can.
We have sleeping bags for them so they don't freeze out here at night. Anything that we can do to help the ones on the streets that don't want to come into the shelter, we'll provide things for them.
Now, you know this guy you said?
Yeah, I know.
Charles Woods, I looked at his...
Yes, I see him around a lot, but he's one of the guys that just won't come in, you know, but we try as much as we can to help him out.
Literally at the same moment, I receive an emailed response from University Hospital to my questions about all this. U of L Health cares for anyone who comes to our emergency rooms. In the last year alone, U of L Hospital cared for more than 3,200 patients believed to be among the unhoused population. Many were seen dozens of times, and some more than 100 times. One individual more than 200 times in a single year. If medical care is not needed or no longer needed, we offer to connect them with community resources. When individuals without a medical need refuse community support and refuse to leave, there is no option left but to help them off the property.
So we're in a situation where the hospital can't take him. He didn't want to go with you, so what do you do?
I just try to provide them everything the Wayside has to offer someone on the street.
Most homeless shelters, including us, do not have medical personnel on staff. We can't help someone who needs medical attention.
The problem Wayside Mission Chief Operating Officer Nina Mosley has continued to have since our first report in June is multiple hospitals sending patients to the shelter who still need medical care.
They had an Uber driver take them over to the shelter, and that gentleman was in terrible shape, could not care for himself any way, shape, or form. To be quite honest, by the time he got here, he had bled all over the back seat of the Uber.
She says they often call EMS and send the patients right back to the hospitals.
You know, we just hope that there can be an answer to this. And I don't think the hospitals on purpose want to put someone out and put them in a dangerous situation, but I think they're at their wits' end, and then when we get the folks that we're not qualified to take care of and know we're not qualified to take care of, and sometimes don't even have a bed available, then we're at a wits' end. You know, what do we do? What do we do? So we need to get together and think of some solutions.
Now, University Hospital finally wrote me today with information on that October 4th incident at the beginning of that report. They say that person went to the emergency room multiple times that day, was screened and treated each time, and was removed off the property because he became aggressive. They say he went back into the ER again after that photo was taken. I've been trying for months to get an interview with University Hospital about this issue. In an email to me, University Hospital says it invests more than $4 million to assist the homeless population, and you can read their entire statement. It's with the story right now on wave3.com.
The system that we've exposed in our series of reports on alleged hospital patient dumping has ended in another death. This is Wave News at 6. I'm Myra Ansari.
I'm John Bull. 1 month after he was part of my last report on the issue, Charles Woods died after being found unresponsive at Hancock and Liberty. Now, we've received a lot of questions about his death. Tonight, what I have found in my investigation. On December 13th, something caught my eye while I was driving down Hancock Street, working on a report on complaints alleging patient dumping. It was a man on the sidewalk at Hancock and Chestnut who told me he had just been removed from the University Hospital emergency room by security.
Did you just go to the emergency room? What's wrong with you? Did they kick you out? Why? What'd they say?
He had what appeared to be hospital scrubs under his clothing. His name and barcode were on a bag with the stuff inside.
Is your name Charles? Charles Woods? Did they walk you out of the hospital over to here? Just now? Can you tell me what's wrong?
He had trouble communicating and was shaking. I called Wayside Christian Mission to see if they could help. They responded within minutes.
You're going to take me now? Yeah, yes, sir. We're going to take you down to the shelter now. So come on, let's get you off the street. Let's get you off the street. You don't want to go in?
Charles Woods refused to go to the shelter, and there was nothing Wayside or anyone could do to force him while the temperature was heading down to 30 degrees that night.
He doesn't seem medically to be okay to me.
No, he's not, and I hate to say it, sometimes the hospital puts them out here and they have nowhere to go, and some of them just don't want to come into the shelter. I just wish the city of Louisville had a place where we can house some elderly people that suffer from mental health issues or dementia and don't have no family to take care of.
A month later, on the morning of January 11th, I got a tip that Charles Woods had died the night before at University Hospital. I called the Jefferson County Coroner's office. They had no record of it. Coroner Joanne Farmer told me a couple days later that's because it was originally reported to them by University Hospital as a natural causes death, and Farmer said they would be opening a case investigation on it. In the meantime, I went to 528 East Liberty, where EMS was called to pick up Woods. That's the New Lou Food Mart. I spoke with the manager, who said he spoke with Woods right before he died on January 10th. The manager said Woods told him he had been kicked out of University Hospital that day and said Woods was still wearing a hospital wristband and gown. The responding EMS crew confirms to me Woods was wearing a hospital wristband. I also spoke with the employee who called 911 that night. He says a customer came in and told him Woods was lying on the ground next to the store, not breathing. When the coroner's investigative report was completed and signed January 29th, it listed manner of death, accident. It noted they were notified by U of L on 1/11/24 at 3:27 in the morning and wrote it up as an ER natural case due to his pre-existing medical issues. Farmer told me no autopsy was done because of that. She said the family had already claimed and buried the body, and they didn't get on the case until my inquiries. When I went to the address listed for next of kin, I was told to leave. The coroner's report notes by pulling the records, he had been brought into U of L Hospital after being found down outside by a bystander in front of 528 East Liberty, unresponsive and down for an undetermined amount of time in 30-degree temperatures. His body temperature was 76 degrees upon arrival at the ER. Upon warming up to 89 degrees and defibrillation efforts, he died. He has a long history of schizophrenia, anemia, foot pain, and neurosyphilis. Hour-by-hour temperature readings January 10th show temps around 36 degrees when the Nulu Food Mart worker told me he called 911. I informed University Hospital of what the Nulu Food Mart manager told me and asked if Charles Woods was at University Hospital anytime on the 10th before he was brought in by EMS. Public Relations Director David MacArthur responded, "The U of L Health family was saddened by this death. Mr. Woods was cared for frequently by our team, and he was a familiar face to many of our nurses, physicians, and other clinicians. They considered his passing a difficult one to process. HIPAA prevents us from providing medical information about a hospital stay, including the date and time of discharge. But the last time Mr. Woods left our care, it was an early morning discharge, and he was fully clothed. In fact, our team provided the clothes as well as food, a bath, arranged a bed at a shelter, and gave him a transportation voucher to get there. U of L Health remains committed to working with all who are interested in working toward a community response to support our unhoused population." The issue of homeless people like Woods frequenting emergency rooms, complaining of medical issues, has been a problem for years in Kentucky. Attorney Hans Poppe, who won a multi-million-dollar patient dumping verdict in Lexington, talked about it in an interview for our first report on this issue.
The hospital can't just leave a bunch of homeless people in the emergency room, and they certainly can't have them taking up beds in the hospital because those are taking up beds that people need that have emergency conditions, so they got to do something. Now, what the answer to that is, I don't know.
What can happen if a so-called frequent flyer is removed from the ER and dies hours later? The Kentucky case of St. Joseph Healthcare versus Thomas decided one example.
Where a gentleman was a known drug user. He was constantly in the hospital seeking drugs, had no insurance. Every day it was a different complaint. And then one day they finally say, "Get out of here, and if you come back, we're going to call the cops on you." Well, the guy went out and left and died a few hours later because he had a bleeding ulcer. And the jury was very mad at that, and they awarded over $1 million in punitive damages in that case.
Again, no autopsy in this case to determine if there was a health or medical issue going on when Woods went down. The coroner's report, based on the available information, says low body temperature caused Woods' accidental death. Now, just 90 minutes ago, I was finally able to talk to Charles' mother, who lives in a senior home. She is skeptical about how all this happened, and she wants answers.